Welcome along to London Calling live from Loftus Road. This hour we've got an exclusive interview with Clint Hill as he looks back on what's been 4 incredible years so far in W12. He's had a promotion, he's had a final day survival, he's had a relegation and madness of Wembley and the player final and all that entailed. That's all coming up, well worth a watch. And we're also looking back on that 2-2 draw against Stoke City. Interesting to get your views on what you thought of that performance. It does seem to be very mixed in the fan base about whether it was a well-earned point or did we nick a point. Be good to get your views on that. You can tweet us using hashtag LCI. We've also got an update on the hashtag Do the Leroy competition. That's coming up as well. We look ahead to this weekend's game on the South Coast against Southampton. We've got an exclusive interview with Adam Blackmore from BBC Solent as well, and all the latest odds from Bet Victor. That's right here on London Calling. Of course, it's been a couple of weeks since we've sat here in this studio on London Calling. A couple of weeks ago, we had Kevin Gallen, and we've managed to top that. I'm delighted to say we've been joined by Brian Melzack. Brian, good evening. How are you?
I haven't got a magic hat.
You haven't got a magic hat?
No.
Sadly, we blew the London Calling budget on Kevin Gallen, and now we've had to bring Brian in.
Yes.
We're joined by Brian Melzack and Ian Taylor. Good evening. We'll be hearing from Ars fans over the course of the next hour. Tweet us using hashtag LCI, just with regards to the topic of debate, actually. What we want to know from you, Ars fans watching, is what your views are on the season so far in 3 words. What 3 words would you use to describe our season so far? Tweet us using hashtag LCI. Brian,
can't broadcast what I think. But to be honest with you, look, to be honest with you, when the final whistle went against Stoke the other day, I came out, and I think a lot of fans came out satisfied that we got a point. You know, we were in a respectable position in the table, but then it all went downhill, didn't it? You know, on Sunday with all the results going against us.
3 results went against us.
And one that really didn't affect us, but probably affected fans psychologically, was the Leicester City game, where you saw a team that went out with fight and conviction, having been 3-1 down, pulled it back to win against the Manchester United team that we played only the week before, and or was it 2 weeks? I'm trying to. There was a
it was the week before.
You know, you get muddled up with all the dates. The week before, and it was something that really, you know, as I say, we came out Loftus Road on a semi-high. Whether we deserved the point, whether we deserved the extra 2 points, you know, a matter of debate. And then we were so let down, having now ended up this week in the relegation. So, how can I sum up the season? Not very happy.
You're not very happy. That's a fair response. Ian, it's been interesting to know fans' views on the season so far. We are 5 games in. What's your view on the proceedings so far?
Before I run through mine, there's a couple that have just come through. Footy_Joe says better than perceived. Gia Schomburg says bumpy start, but with positives. I guess he's...
We'll let that extra word go.
Russell Wilson says 4 games played. I get Russell's sentiment, but we've actually played 5 games. But you can see what he means. It's
very early.
I mean, mine would probably be 4 words: marathon, not a sprint. There's a long way to go. I know that there's a little bit of disharmony maybe amongst the Ars faithful at the minute. I took positives from Saturday's performance. Not so much performance, but result, I should say, because I don't think the QPR team of 2 or 3 years ago in the Premier League would have come back. Far from it. I think we'd have probably been out of sight. Would have been 4 or 5-1 down maybe at that stage when Nico steps over that free kick. So I think there were positives to take, but I think there's a hell of a lot of hard work that needs to be still put in.
OK, we'll be looking back more on that 2-2 draw against Stoke City in just a moment. Just an update on the Do the Leroy competition, just to remind people who perhaps haven't seen it as well. We've got a competition to win a signed Leroy Fur shirt. This is Leroy's quite incredible dance on his wedding day with his lovely new wife. What an effort that is. What an effort that is. Beautifully choreographed. What we've asked Ars fans to do is to replicate it. Send it to us using hashtag DoTheLeroy on a whole host of social media platforms. And we are actually showing them to Leroy next week. We were hoping to do it earlier, but obviously he was away on international duty. Opportunity didn't arise this week, so we're doing it next week with Leroy. And we're given an opportunity to send in more videos. So if you want to try to win a signed Leroy Fur QPR shirt, that's the sort of thing you've got to send to us on video. And here's a snippet of the videos we've had so far. Brilliant effort. So if you would like to get involved in that and have Leroy Fur judging your attempt to recreate his wedding dance, you can send it to us, as I say, on a variety of platforms using hashtag #DoTheLeroy. You can send it to us on Twitter. You can send it to us via Facebook. You can send it to us on Instagram. Send it via Vine as well. So just make sure you use the hashtag #DoTheLeroy, and Leroy Fur will be looking at those videos over the course of the next week. And all being well, next Thursday we will have a winner decided for the Leroy Fur signed QPR shirt. And a big thank you to those of you who've already sent those videos in. Sterling work. Okay, we're speaking about the result against Stoke City, and it does seem that, as we were saying at the top of the show, or I said at the top of the show, that some people were saying we've nicked a point there, we didn't deserve anything, whereas others said a battling point, that we deserved something from the game, came back from behind twice. Brian, your thoughts?
Well, you've just said it, came back from behind twice. If you can come back from behind twice, you deserve a point. There's nothing more that can be said about that. We would have been very upset if we hadn't got something out of the game. And at times, I think, you know, Stoke showed that they had superiority. I think we were running around like headless chickens at times. A little bit desperate, I think, at times as well, in my opinion. And I think players were playing a little out of position. There was a situation, I think, when Charlie Austin was playing a little too deep, in my opinion, and he passed the ball out to Maurizio Eisler, who was ready to cross it. But, of course, we didn't have any striker because Charlie was playing a little out of position, and I've been finding that he's been playing a little more out of position a little bit more this season.
Yeah, well, it was a diamond formation as well.
And I don't know whether or not it suits our style of play.
There's that one player it did suit, that was Nico Crancher. I thought it was, for me, I thought it was a poor performance, especially in the first half, improving the second. I thought Crancher was the standout player, probably in both teams, if I'm being perfectly honest. I thought Crouchy had a good game. Up top, and
Victor Moses played.
Victor Moses,
I
had
Moses,
2 men of the match, and
but Moses for me was, and you know, Issa's being picked up right back at the moment, which I think he's finding difficult maybe at the minute because he's a right wing back. But I thought, going back to my point, I thought Nico was outstanding and more than deserved his goal when he stepped up and banged it into the roof of the net. It's
well worth looking at the stats from the game. People say it was, some saying it was very one-sided and Stoke were completely dominant. And they certainly had the more clear-cut opportunities. But if you look at the stats, QPR had 52% possession, 15 shots to Stoke's 7, 5 on target to Stoke's 4. So when you see that, that doesn't strike me as Stoke dominated and should have had 3 points. I mean,
if you look at, when Nzonzi has the chance from 15 yards out, it's not an open goal because Rob's there, but he could have picked any spot, but he put it wide of the goal.
And Peter Crouch had a chance. They had 2 opportunities to have a 2-goal lead.
Buffer.
Yeah. When they were 1-0 up, Peter Crouch went through and put it just wide of the far post. And like you say, Nzonzi at 2-1 could have made it 3-1.
And in the Premier League, you know, it's not a great weekend to give it as an example with Leicester coming back from 2 goals down, but you rarely claw back a 2-goal deficit in the Premier League. Probably the last time we did that was the Liverpool game.
Liverpool game, that's right, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a long way to go for me. There's a lot of improvements that's needed. And we've got some blooming tough games coming up. So
every game's a tough game.
It's going to be a challenge.
But you're saying it's a long way to go, and you know we were saying this not last season, but the season before, and the season prior to that, and we were saying it's a long way.
We're 5 games in. Let's not get.
We were saying this 2 years ago. We're 5 games in. We're 6 games in. We're 7 games in, and time started to run out. I think we've got to really adjust and get ourselves in a position that we pull ourselves out of relegation zone.
We've got points on the board. We've got a victory
which we didn't have last time.
Exactly.
Okay,
A couple of the 3-worders. Paolo says not very happy. Rangers are back. Says very, very unreliable. Sean McCardle says lack of pace. David Webber says like 2012 again. Queen's Park Rangers negative, not positive. And Paul James says very slow start. So.
Yeah, it's interesting views. Personally, I personally think the 3 home games, there are positives to take from all 3 of those. Against Hull, I thought we played very well and certainly deserved something from the game. Obviously, we had the late missed penalty. We beat Sunderland, and personally, I felt we definitely deserved something from the game against Stoke.
They normally say between 6 and 10, don't they? Games you can analyse properly.
For me, the 2 away games were desperately disappointing. 2 4-0 reverses at... Well, it doesn't matter where you're at. It's in the same division. So to lose 4-0 is a hugely disappointing result at Tottenham and at Manchester United. And I think maybe those 2 results have affected people's perception of the season as a whole. Yeah, because if you look at it, we are 1 point. Charlie scores that penalty. We're 1 point better off, and we're on 5 points, joint with 12th place team.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how tight it is. We're three.
It's very tight at the moment.
Well, it is because there's only 5 games gone.
It will start to open up.
There's only 5 games gone. We're 3 points off 8th place. But we're 1 point off 12th place. I just think
that's 5 games in.
Because of those 3 results on the Sunday, we've dropped into the bottom 3. And understandably, because a couple of years ago we spent the entire season in the bottom 3, people are thinking, "Oh, crikey, not again," which I do understand. But personally, I think there's plenty of reason to think I can see this team getting better as the season goes on. I might be made to eat my words, but personally...
Concerns, though, are going away from home. We've letting 8 goals away from home.
Yeah, these next 2 now, you're playing sides that I know that Southampton started like a steam train, haven't they? And they're flying high.
How long that can go on for, we just,
And we've got a good record there, which we'll get into later in the show. But Southampton and West Ham, if you are going to pick up points in the Premier League on your travels, they're places that you've got to get something from if you're to have any hope.
Yeah, I think that's fair. While you try,
and you've got Liverpool next.
Yeah, and while everyone else seems to be picking up points against Man United, apart from us, you don't expect, or perhaps in previous years, you don't expect to go to Old Trafford, to go to White Hart Lane and win. You don't expect to get slaps like that. Yeah. But you don't expect to win. Perhaps they're seen by some as bonus games, but. At Southampton, despite their good start, you'd look at it and think maybe we can get something there. West Ham, I mean, they had a couple of great results, to be fair, but you think maybe you could get something there.
What do you think about that? Personally, I don't buy the bonus game thing. For me, every game, it's been proved time and again over the years, every game you can win. Look at what Swansea have beaten Manchester United away, Tottenham, if you look at Tottenham's form at the minute, it's horrendous. For me, I think if we'd have been more positive and on the front foot, now Harry would say that perhaps we didn't have the players and we weren't set up to do that. But I think if we'd have shown maybe a little bit more positivity, and I know, Matt, you look at the 2 chances that Matt Phillips missed in both games. It could have been a different game.
And you look
if you're
at
on the front foot, and you're going for it a little bit more.
And with Leicester obviously scoring 5 against United the following weekend, it suggests that their weakness was there.
But United were still vulnerable. When we played United, they were still vulnerable. But and this saying that we gave them too much respect, every game you play is war. And you an enemy doesn't give, you don't give who you're fighting respect. You go, it sounds a bit harsh, but you go for the kill. You've got to win, and you don't show the opposition respect because.
Be interesting this weekend, won't it?
Yeah.
Because Harry's openly admitted that we've stood off it. If you stand off Southampton this weekend, they will rip you to shreds.
Yeah, I think
they've got so many good footballers.
I wonder whether that, particularly because of what happened in the last 2 games, whether the approach will be to be more offensive.
And when I say
if that leaves us more open at the back, fine. But I think there might be that more offensive approach, which it could be goals galore.
When I say they'll rip us to shreds, I don't mean that disrespectfully to QPR. I think Southampton on their day can do that to anyone because that is their strength. They'll pick you off.
And you're talking about an offensive. We played defensive against Manchester United. I've never seen us play so defensive in my life before, and we still lost for 4 goals. So you've got to push forward. You've got to be offensive. You've got to start and try and score some goals.
A couple more just coming through here. The Maverick 10, which is Dean Bowie, his wife says, trust the gaffer. And Heshan Wirami says, Anua must start.
Anua must start. And we've had a few already come in prior to the show using hashtag LCI. Describe the season so far for QPR in 3 words. Paul Gibbons, backwards since Warnock. Harsh from Gibbo. Gibbo's not happy at all. Come on, Paul, cheer up. Peter Thornton, holding back unnecessarily, I suppose, Peter's view there, particularly in regard to the 2 away games where we did sit off Spurs and Man United. Steve Patrick must gel quickly. Obviously, the new signings still settling in. Perhaps Emma Wardle must stay strong. So a bit more confident from Emma Wardle. Adele, missing Adele Tarab. That's from Adele. Lovely to know you're watching the show, Adele, and thanks for your thoughts. Premier QPR Sludger, not started yet. And Scott Jones, promising, frustrating formation, question mark. Obviously, it's a valid point as well there from Scott because we have changed our formation quite a lot and we are only 5 games in. Rod Lanigan need another striker. And Ross Lee, Redknapp, please leave. Strong from Ross Lee after, again, only 5 games. Ross Churchill, hard to watch.
There does seem to be, we talked about it at the start, it's a bit of ill feeling, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's coming through, but very quickly.
If I was to look at all the tweets we've had, I would probably say that 70% are negative, 30% are, well, maybe 20% are positive, and there's 10 that are sitting on the fence.
Right.
But that can all change, can't it? We know that's football.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with possibly we need another striker, but we can't do anything till January.
I'll tell you what has divided opinion, it seems. Leroy Fer. his performances personally, and I said it at half-time to someone at the Stoke game, I thought Leroy Fer was excellent. At the end of the game, I was saying I personally thought Leroy Fer was one of our best players.
And a few of us disagreed, didn't we? And then Harry went in and did TV and said exactly what you said. And for me, you know nothing about football. I know
nothing about football. And yet I was proved right. Harry...
I mean, but when you watch it back...
Yeah, I mean...
He did have a good game.
Harry and Rio Ferdinand did an interview and he said for me the stand-up player on the pitch was Leroy Fer,
but he was doing everything in the background. He wasn't in your face.
Even looking on message boards, there's some fans who were saying that he was excellent, and others saying, "What game were you watching?" It seems it really has split.
One thing I will say about him, and you know, I think in the year we went down, there were players that didn't want the ball, would hide. And would look for somebody else to take responsibility. For me, he's on the flip side. He's always looking for the ball, always looking to make things happen. Even if it doesn't come off, he won't hide away for 5 minutes. He'll look to get it back and impact the game.
I thought when the ball was going to him, I was sort of half expecting something to happen because perhaps, like you were just saying, he was looking to create. And interestingly, when Stephen Corker's corner, if you look back, Stoke had possession. Leroy Fer actually won the ball with an unbelievable tackle, fed Jordan Much. We went on to win the corner, which we scored from. So I think people were questioning Fer's defensive side of his game, and while that it isn't his strength is going forward. I personally thought he was.
And a big game for him this weekend as well, because you know, if you were to believe the papers, it was Southampton or QPR, wasn't it?
Yeah.
This summer, and obviously Ronald Koeman's a Dutch legend as well, with obviously Leroy being a current Dutch international. So. Big game for him.
Yeah, it'd be interesting for him to go down and say, "Hey guys, sorry you missed out."
Yeah, let's hope he does.
Yes.
Okay, we spoke with Clint Hill earlier this week at his home in Egham, and he looked back on like we were saying, 4 incredible years so far at Loftus Road. This is in 2 parts. The second part of the interview is later in the show. Let's look on the first part as Clint Hill reflects on his time so far in W12.
Clint, 4 years at QPR so far, and I think it's fair to say you've crammed a lot into the 4 years. So what we'll do, we'll go through some photos in chronological order which sort of sum up your time at QPR so far.
Okay.
And I think the first one is obvious to start with Neil Warnock, who brought you to the club, and I suppose you've got a lot to be grateful to him for.
Yeah, even before the move to QPR, I mean, I was at Stoke City, had an injury kind of ravaged career at Stoke. And he seen something in me to take me to Crystal Palace, give me the enthusiasm and the love for the game back, which was important for me. And lucky enough, he brought me to this club, and that year was amazing. It was probably the best year I've ever been involved in. The way the whole team just clicked, and the way we approached every game, the way we played every game was fantastic, not just for me, but I suppose for the fans as well.
And the start to that season was an incredible run. I think we had 26 points from the first 10 league games, and this was in the midst of that run against Doncaster. I think Paddy had tapped it onto the bar and it looked like a certain goal, and you managed to pull off a goal line clearance. Do you remember these moments when you see them?
Yeah, I mean that just goes through my head now. What I think we were struggling at the time. I think they were on top of us, and I think that's probably one of the most important bits of defending I've done, to be honest with you. Like you said there, Paddy done a terrific save onto the bar, and lucky enough, I don't think he hit it too hard enough, and I managed to get back. And I still think, I don't know how I didn't put it in, to be honest with you. The way I must have just hit the sweet spot on my foot and cleared the bar. But great memories and a great team to be involved with. It really was. Like you said there, the way we started that season was frightening. I don't think anybody really expected that. And it's just carried us on right the way through.
And I think your little girl's 7 now and studying Macbeth.
Jeez, look at this.
You've got her there coming out against Leeds, and obviously that was an incredibly emotional day. It was only about 45 minutes before that you actually discovered you had been promoted. There was talk of a points deduction, ending up back in the playoffs. So it must have been crazy emotions when you were walking out there.
Yeah, to be fair, I think it was a disgrace how the club and the players were treated, to be honest with you. Leaving it up to 45 minutes in the last game of the season, I thought it was a big, massive disrespect to the club. And we couldn't really celebrate. We didn't know what our fate was. And then all I remember is, I think it was Gianni at the time, coming in, crying, wailing, arms everywhere, saying, "Yeah, we're okay, we're all right, I told you." And that was just a massive relief. I mean, don't remember anything about the game. Didn't really care about the game at that point. It was just all about us getting the justice that we felt we deserved, and thankfully, yeah, it was all right for us.
It led to promotion, your first game in the Premier League, and you feared it would be your last.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think I'd play, to be honest with you, in the Premier League. Yeah, I remember that game wasn't a great game, and I got myself sent off, which wasn't right for myself. And then from there on, I thought that's it, to be honest. Obviously, Neil brought his players in, and he was very forthright with me and said that you probably won't be playing now. So if you want to go out on loan, then you go out. And yeah, I managed to do that and get fit and play a few games, and yeah, the rest is kind of history at the moment.
Yeah, you went on loan to Nottingham Forest, did very well, and then were called back. And your first game back was at Loftus Road against Chelsea. And in terms of atmospheres at stadiums, yeah, that's got to be up there.
Oh, definitely. I mean, not just. I don't know who I played the week before in the Championship, and then to come back and say you're up against Sturridge and Drogba and all them, it was like, wow, baptism of fire. But that game was just surreal. I think they had 2 sendings off. We got a penalty, electric atmosphere, and it just reminded me like what a proper derby is. And it was intense, and lucky enough we hung on. I don't think we got a touch. They only had 9 men. I think they still popped the ball around us. That's how good they were. But thankfully, yeah, we managed to get a 1-0 win, and that gave us that little bit of belief as well, and give the fans a bit as well.
As the season went on, it was obvious it was going to become a real relegation scrap, and as it would turn out, us against Bolton. So when we played them at their place, it was really regarded as your archetypal 6-pointer. And what do you remember about this when you're headed across the line? It never was, and you're still waiting for your first Premier League goal.
I'm still waiting. Yeah, it's to be fair, I don't know how the keeper's done it. The way it's hit his arm, his forearm, or whatever, and bounced out and hit the crossbar and went clear. I don't think he'd ever do that again. Got a full connection on it. I thought it was destined for the back of the net. Obviously, it was a goal, but the referee in that didn't see it. And I think for us to get a point there would have, I think, took the pressure off us. Man City,
got the late win,
you know. So it was a big call that they got wrong. Thankfully, they brought this kind of technology in now, so that'll never happen again. Hopefully,
fingers crossed. It went down to the final day. It ended up being successful for QPR, but there was that point where Aguero scored, and while the QPR fans were all celebrating because they knew, Man City fans were celebrating because they'd now won the title. And I always wonder how true it is that a few of you say, no, we genuinely didn't know, until I saw that picture.
Yeah.
And clearly, yourself, Anton, Sean Derry believe you have just been relegated in injury time.
Yeah, that picture says 1,000 words, doesn't it? It's you just remember him picking it up, going through and scoring, and you're like, oh my God, how have we let this slip? 3-2. We were relegated, and then literally 30 seconds, not even that, after that, I remember Righty coming up to me saying, don't even worry about it, the game's over there, we're up, we're surviving. And I think it definitely was half the team knew that it was over, that game was over, and we were up no matter what. But yeah, looking at our faces there, we're absolutely devastated. But 10 minutes later, we're having a few beers in the dressing room. So.
With the Man City players in there as well, I think. But yeah, they were the celebrations. The QPR fans got on the pitch as well, and it was just a stadium of celebration.
Yeah, I would have dreaded to think what it would have been like if we did manage to nick a point or a win at that turn. I don't think it would have been as friendly as that with the Man City fans everywhere. High-fiving them and getting pats on the back, making my way to our fans. But yeah, just massive emotions that day, just relief that we finally actually kind of done the impossible, really, when you look at the fixture list we had towards the end of the season. Yeah, big achievement.
Part one there of that interview. Clint Hill talking about his time so far at Loftus Road. Part 2 coming up later on this hour. And Clint Hill, who hasn't been as involved as I'm sure he'd like to be involved in every game. He's played, I think, 3 games. Not involved as he was the last few seasons. So it's a new challenge for him. But it's so important for a player like Clint Hill to still be around the club. He almost typifies what QPR fans want QPR to be about.
He's Mr. QPR. He gives everything when he's on the pitch. He gives everything when he's off the pitch. He wasn't involved on Saturday yet. He was in and amongst the lads. I'm sure there'll be occasions this year that he might not make squads due to injury or whatever, and I'm sure he'll still be there.
But he's a QPR man through and through, and the fans, the fans love him.
We just love watching Clint Hill, and I think all fans do. He might admit that it's going to be tough for him to get as many games, but he hasn't let us down when he has played. So.
But he's exceptional as well. He knows when he can't do the right thing. Yeah. He's pulled himself off the pitch out of a game at the right time, and that's what you need in a player.
Yeah, and the issues arguably over the last 3 or 4 years has been a lack of identity with the QPR squad owing to a lack of continuity.
Well, we've got the continuity in Clint Hill.
And that identity for me now is back, and it's what you want it to be, but it's down to people like him and a few others in that dressing room that have been here for a long period that have managed to turn the tide, and now it is despite some of the doom and gloom on Twitter tonight, it is a good dressing room, and the lads are all in it together.
But you also need players that fans can identify with, because in so many clubs and teams, players are here one season, gone the next, the next. There's no continuity, so the fans can't really associate with a player. And Clint, you can, Joey, you can. Now he's been here a few seasons. Granted, he had a season out on loan, you need Rob Green and Charlie. You're right, and there are players there that we can associate with our team now.
Yeah. Okay. Before we start looking ahead to Saturday's game against Southampton, I think it's worth bringing up there was an issue at the game of the weekend against Stoke in the lower loft. Firstly, for people that perhaps aren't aware of the issue, what was the issue?
Yeah, there was a couple of issues in the lower loft on Saturday, quite contentious, and the supporters right to have their say. We received, obviously the lower loft is a family stand. We can go into the rights and wrongs of that another time, I'm sure. I think we've probably exhausted it. But the club received a few complaints in the build-up to Saturday's game from the first 2 home fixtures as such, that people were, season ticket holders in that area were attending without juniors. Obviously, that's one of the rules and regs.
And the complaints were from supporters in the lower loft.
From supporters in that area, so families that sit in that area. And there was also various complaints about foul language being used, which obviously, people do get carried away in the heat of the moment at football matches, especially at Loftus Road. But I guess the environment in there is one where you don't want there to be foul language again. I will say, some people don't feel it should be the family area, and they're entitled to their opinion. So we, the operations team, in conjunction with the box office and the marketing departments, the customer services areas, looked at monitoring those attending the game on Saturday. Seen a few things that they're saying that people were refused entry. I don't think that was correct. I think everybody eventually got into the ground, although there were some delays. I think from a club point of view, I think the operations team have held their hands up. It could have been handled better on the day by the stewards, but it's something that we're going to continue to monitor.
So what are the next steps with it now? Like you say, the club will continue to monitor it. Perhaps the stewards didn't handle it as perhaps they could have done. Yeah. What are the next steps now? So
we're going to write to every adult season ticket holder in that lower loft family stand, and just give them an update, and then going forward, a group of families that will be selected, not just families that are happy with the current situation, but also families that aren't happy with the situation, maybe those that were affected on Saturday. We're going to invite them in to do a couple of workshops with the operations and marketing and the box office departments, and just sit down and try and reach an amicable resolution, because it wasn't ideal what happened on Saturday. And in the meantime, as we always say, let us have your feedback. I think one thing we can't be accused of in recent times is certainly not being quite communicable as a club. So boxoffice@qpr.co.uk if any of the fans have got any outstanding issues, would like to voice their concerns, or on the flip side, are supporting us in what we did at the weekend. Any views, we'll take them on board. Also contact Andy Rees, who's our customer service, andyr@qpr.co.uk, and fingers crossed we won't have some of the issues that we had on Saturday.
Okay, hopefully that clears that up. But if you would like to get in contact to voice your comments, be them positive or negative, then send them to the club box office @qpr.co.uk or andyr@qpr.co.uk. Okay, moving on now to Southampton this coming weekend. Well, they're just defying all logic, seemingly. They had the heart of their team apparently ripped out in the summer with all the players leaving.
We just thought that was it for them, didn't
we?
And
a lot of people, and then there was talk of more players wanting to leave and tweeting that they wanted to leave. And you were looking, thinking, after an incredible first season back in the Premier League, Southampton are imploding now. And obviously a new manager coming in as well, and you're thinking, well, it's going to be very difficult for him because the expectation level had been raised. He's now lost your Lallanas and Lamberts and Chambers and Luke Shaw. And you think, how on earth is he going to handle that situation?
He's not done bad, has he?
He's done incredibly. They're second in the table.
9 goals scored, 3 conceded.
Beat Arsenal in a week in the Cup.
Yeah.
And it was a strong Arsenal side.
They could score goals.
Their only defeat this season is the opening day at
Against
Anfield.
Liverpool. Yeah,
and it was a late winner for Liverpool.
Yeah. So
what on earth are we expecting at St Mary's this Saturday, Brian?
Well, the attitude is to go down and take the game to them. You know, we can't rest back. None of this respect situation. We just got to go forward. I mean, they're scoring goals. What Pele scored? Was it Pele? How do you pronounce it? Pele. Pele. 3 goals. I mean, already this season. 2 of their strikers. I'd say 6 goals between them at the moment. They know how to score goals. They've got a tight defence.
Everybody keeps saying to me, "Oh, they haven't played the side in the top 6 yet," but
they are in the top 6.
You can only beat what's in front of you, can't you? And boy, have they done that in
it's an
some
interesting,
style.
but it's an interesting. I think it's an interesting league this season. I know we're getting away from the game, but you know, most seasons you have your top 6 that are fighting and almost making a sort of play for it straight off the beginning, and you've got the teams at the bottom. With the exception, unfortunately, ourselves, Burnley and Newcastle, I think are going to struggle. I think Newcastle may just come out of it somehow. All the other teams are there or thereabouts, can beat one another. Right, I know that Chelsea haven't yet lost, and neither have Villa, but the others are losing to one another. I think it's going to be a very, very open season this season. I don't think it's going to be someone really running away with it.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. You look and, like you say, we're 5 games in and already there's no 100% record, which normally you have 1 or 2 teams that still seem to maintain it for the first few. With regards to Southampton, they have done incredibly well. It is worth noting that while they did recoup a heck of a lot of money over the summer, they did reinvest a large portion of that and spent nearly £60 million on 6 players. But it does seem they've all come in and there's no needing to gel business. They're just on fire.
Well, they're all players the manager knows, aren't they? Because obviously he's coming from Holland. Feyenoord, was he?
Was he Feyenoord? I know he signed one of the players from FC Twente as well.
So he's bought players, and I guess the Dutch league is quite similar to the English league in terms of the football that they try to play, the total football, as it were. But
but Paul, you've just said, this gelling, which is something we used to speak about.
You hate this term.
I hate this word gelling. You know, if you can play football,
only because you've got nothing to gel.
That's what I did. We should have done this programme 20 years ago. But this gelling. If you can play football, and you're a good footballer, and let's be quite honest, the majority of the players in the Premier League have to be at a certain standard. They should be able to get together and play football with one another. Obviously, you get to know each other a little better as the weeks go on. But, when you're kids or when you go and play football in the park with a bunch of lads that you've never played football with before, and they, hey, do you want to join in? If you can play football, you're going to play with them.
It's almost as if the shackles are off for them because nobody gives them their cat and nails chance at the start of the season. They've brought in these players, which are all good players. They've all bought into what the new manager there is trying to do. They've managed to keep probably... Everyone talks about how good Lallana was last year, but their best player by a country mile was Morgan Schneiderlin.
He was already one of their top goals. He scored 3 this season.
Yeah, and that's playing in a deep line midfield role. And yet he handed a transfer request, didn't he? It looked like Tottenham or Arsenal, even Liverpool were being linked, but he's got his head down and he's been outstanding. You combine that with the likes of Nathaniel Klein, who's made a great start to the season from right back. They've got every chance of staying up there as long as they can keep everybody fit.
I mean, it does happen. We had this with Hull City, we had it with Blackpool many seasons ago, all right at the very top, but and then they sort of fall away.
But it's such an open league. I just don't see them really falling in too quickly. I don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't see a decline too quickly. I'm hoping it will be this Saturday.
Yeah, fingers crossed. You're speaking of them from their point of view, hopefully keeping those players fit and having a good season. In terms of players staying fit, quite remarkably, QPR already having a huge injury list.
We've got a winter injury list already,
after 5 games. It's
and all
amazing.
In the same position.
Yeah, and all in the central midfield position.
Yeah,
What's
Harry
the latest on that?
Harry confirmed this morning that both Jordan Much and Joey Barton will miss the game with hamstrings that they picked up here last weekend. Nico Cranchar last week, so I was going to say match winner, but man of the moment, hero of the hour, as it were, has a knock as well, and is a doubt. Adel Taarabt looks like he's going to be out, and there's still a question mark over Sandro as well. So there's potentially 5 who would be there or thereabouts in your starting 11 that are potentially all going to miss that game. So
and you throw Ali Fowling into the mix as well.
You know, when we started the season off, we had
all six players, all midfield players, out injured after 5 games. Yeah, that's incredible.
Well, we thought at the beginning of the season we had such a rich choice of
midfield we thought players. That was a one area where we were comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely, and as you say, 6 players have gone out of those 9, 10 midfielders. So we're going to struggle, and again, it'll affect the formation.
Cole Henry, with the way the injuries have gone, Cole Henry came on against Stoke City, and I thought he did very well.
Yeah. I thought he'd never be on free kicks or corners, I don't think. And yet, Nico, I'm guessing that the talk is that the injury that might keep him out this weekend was one he picked up in Saturday's game. He perhaps wasn't able to take too many free kicks and corners, which was probably good because it meant that he saved himself for the one.
Yeah, because there was a free kick just before that, which Nico again had won on the edge of the area, and Carl took it and just tried to clip it in. I think Leroy Fer got a header and it went out for a corner. But yeah, you're right. I think for that one, it was a little bit closer.
But he did do really well.
89th minute, he fancied it. But
I think he made a big impact when he came on. He's not one of those that's going to create too many chances, but he's in there and he does a job. And for me, he's maybe a player that we missed at Tottenham and Manchester United in those away games where we almost stood off them too much, in my opinion, and we weren't in their faces. And if Carl Henry's going to do one thing, he's going to be right up here, isn't he?
And you talk about Nico having a knock and maybe not playing, but if you think about how he played and how he was battered continually by City, just to come out with a knock, it's quite amazing.
Well, fingers crossed, Nico will be available for Saturday's game against Southampton. We take on the high-flying Saints, and we've caught up with Adam Blackmore from BBC Radio Solent to give us the inside scoop on what to expect at St Mary's.
Adam Blackmore from BBC Solent. Thanks for joining us on London Calling. Just looking ahead to this weekend's game, you've seen every Southampton fixture so far this season and have made a terrific start. What's been the secret to their success in the opening months of the campaign?
Well, I think their ability to carry on playing in the same way that they were playing last season. I think that's been the secret to their success so far, really. And I think Ronald Koeman has managed to put people in place and replace the players they've lost to do the same job they were doing. So it's almost as if the club's philosophy of how they want to play has managed to continue despite all the upheavals of the summer, and that's helped with the consistency that they found this season.
How impressed have you been with how Koeman himself has adapted to English football? Because he had quite a task on his hands when he arrived, obviously with a huge upheaval in terms of player turnover.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing for him, of course, is that he didn't really know those players. So whilst it was an upheaval for a lot of their colleagues and their peers, the likes of Jay Rodriguez and Morgan Schneider, for instance, he's come in and not had to take any of the blame, not had to take anything that's happened has not been of his doing. So he's been able, I think, quietly and efficiently to put his own mark on things and just to move it forward. And I have to say also that compared to a lot of managers, he's refreshingly honest in the way he talks and very calm and assured. And he doesn't dodge questions. So if you ask him a question, he generally just asks it, which of course is rare these days. And I think that sort of quiet confidence has sort of helped on the training ground, it's helped in the dressing room, and I think it's helped on the pitch, to be honest, because he's got the assurance of a man who knows what he's doing because he was such a good player.
Most of his new signings have hit the ground running. Have you been impressed with them all?
Yeah, I think not say 100% all the time, but certainly at least 80% of the time I've been impressed with them all. We haven't seen enough of Toby Alderweireld, who I think is probably the signing that's has excited fans as much as any of the others, even though he's a defender, because he was an Atletico Madrid player and because he's a class act. And he got injured after his debut against Newcastle, so we've only seen him play once. So it's debatable whether he'll be fit for the QPR match. But I think probably Tadic looks to have a lot of tricks. Pella is a big unit. He's done well, but he was slow to adjust. And then he sort of came to life after he scored at Millwall in the League Cup. So he's got a few goals now. they didn't really function as an attacking force at Swansea. And of course, it was the players they relied on were the ones in the middle of the park who they already had at the club here, like Schneiderlin, Cork, Wanyama, Ward-Prowse and Davis. That midfield has been crucial to them, and keeping that midfield has made a massive difference as much as the new players. And I'll also give a word to Ryan Bertrand, who's been excellent at left back.
You mentioned Morgan Schneiderlin, you've mentioned him a couple of times. How key was keeping him when, at times this summer, he made it clear that he was keen to move on for pastures new?
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? I mean, he's gone from on the verge of being a rebel to getting his head down, realising it's not going to happen. And I think the club finally putting their foot down has turned the sum around possibly quite a lot, because once they did that and once he realised he wasn't going anywhere, he's now putting in the sort of performances which got him in the France squad in the first place. So I mention him a lot because for me, Koeman's struck upon something which has been sitting Schneiderlin in front of the back four. Now, he's gained more goals playing from deeper than he was playing ahead of, say, Wanyama last season. And that's interesting because what he's able to do is he's able to see the game better, see more of it, work out, develop the team's strategy. He's the quarterback, if you like. He's the one firing the passes at range or deciding where everything's going to go. And he wants that role. He thrives on it. Actually, you know, in 2 matches at West Ham, he was outstanding. Newcastle, he was just as good. So he is absolutely crucial to the success of the Saints team at the moment.
Plenty of positives. Are there any weaknesses to this Southampton side at the minute?
Well, I think we're going to find weaknesses. I can't believe, even if you're the most optimistic Southampton supporter, you're going to expect them to stay in the top 4 as we go through the season. They've got, you know, big challenges ahead, like all the clubs who aren't one of the so-called top 5, top 6 clubs. But there's no doubt they've got fixtures at the start of the season, bar the game at Liverpool, which have given them a chance to make a decent start. So I think that's always important to get points on the board. And of course, in QPR's case, it's a matter of getting the points then to relax a bit. They're trying to do it like Southampton 2 years ago, struggled to get points on the board early with a lot of tough fixtures. And I think it's easier to get those earlier fixtures in. And you have to say they will start against the Hoops as favourites because they're at home and the form they're in. So it's going to be an interesting one. I think Harry will look forward to coming back to St Mary's for sure and trying to put one over on them. And we'll have to see. QPR did well there last time out, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, I was going to say Saints will be rightly favourites, odds-on favourites for this weekend. But Rangers actually unbeaten in their 5 visits to St Mary's. Are you expecting another tight game this weekend, especially with Harry going back?
Yeah, I think there'll be an edge in the crowd because Harry comes back. There always is. But I expect QPR to be well organised at the back. And in fact, interestingly, you know, Southampton's best performances where they've really flourished. And I know everyone will say Newcastle at home was a 4-0, but Newcastle was so bad, Ian.
Yeah.
But, you know, I can't believe QPR could defend that badly, even on a bad day. So they were allowed to play by Newcastle, who watched them play for a lot of the match. But actually, the most inventive and exciting they've been is probably at Liverpool in the second half.
Yeah.
And at West Ham, where they were brilliant in the second half there. So there is an argument that says they're going to have a tougher time sometimes at home. Now sides have worked out they're a good team early under Koeman, where, you know, QPR might come, stick bodies behind the ball and give them no space to play. So I think the home games are often going to be tighter, if not as tight as the away games, because they're not getting the space to play. And so when we talk about the additions in the summer, the question remains, can the additions replace the quality that Lallana would provide in that situation, or Lambert, that little bit of something that unlocks the defence? And that's what we're sort of waiting to see, I think, on a consistent basis.
The thoughts there of BBC Radio Silence, Adam Blackmore. Thanks to him. And it does seem that there is an air of confidence and positivity on the South Coast, which is what you'd expect.
Yeah, very much so. I don't think anybody expected them to start the season as they have done. So I think everything's a bonus at the minute from. But yeah, they've been excellent from what I've seen on the highlights and the clips on Match of the Day and whatever.
You're going to see them in real life on Saturday, aren't you?
Yeah.
Brian, do you think they'll be able to play with that freedom at home against a team that's in the relegation zone?
Well,
or is this almost the first time this season the Saints fans will be turning up to watch them expecting to win?
I'm hoping that the Saints fans turn up expecting them to win, because obviously with that sense of being so confident, we can sort of counteract that confidence. And I'm hoping that if we play an offensive game, we'll basically shut them up. We've got to go at them. There's no two ways about it. We've got to go at them. And I just think the complacency that I think we've had when we go away from home, and I do believe that's the case, has to now be historical. We've now got to really start going forward. We've got to start scoring goals. I know it sounds continued.
Scott Jones made the point earlier with regards to a formation ? Because the formation has changed quite a bit.
Yeah, well, it didn't work
so far this season. We are only 5 games in. We've played with the 3 at the back. We've played 4-4-2. We've played with the diamond. We've played with the wingers. For Saturday's game, Brian, what would you like to see?
I think we should need to play I'd like to play a 4-4-2. That's what I think. We need to get 2 players up front. We need to start getting the goals. We've got to shore up our midfield, and of course we've got to tighten up on our defence. And I think a 4-4-2 will allow us to do that. It gives the option to obviously to be offensive but defensive at the same time, because we don't know what Southampton are going to throw at us. We know they're going to throw something.
The 2 things that it seems to be with Harry, he likes to have 2 out-and-out goal scorers on the pitch, but he also likes to have 3 central midfielders, because he feels that's the way the game has gone, and that's now where the games are won. A lot of teams seem to have 3 central midfielders. If you only have 2, you're going to make life difficult for yourselves. If he does want to have those 2 in the same formation, it suggests that 3 at the back is the only way to do it.
Yeah. 3-5-2 or a 5-3-2, doesn't it?
Yeah, then again, you're looking at the 4-3-1-1s, and you're just playing with formations, and they don't always work.
He spoke today with regards to formation changes, and he was asked at his pre-match press conference this morning at Harlington whether the 3 at the back was dead or whether he still sees some life in it. And the way he spoke, that does seem to be his preferred formation of choice. He started speaking about Isla being a right wing back, not a right back. Armand Traore's ideal position is a left wing back. So you do wonder whether he is. Well, he certainly would appear to be toying with the idea of bringing that back for Saturday's game.
And if he does do that, a lot of people are clamouring for Neda Manua to be back in the side.
Well, they have been, haven't they? They just can't believe he's not playing.
It could be opportunity knocks for him, but we'll see at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon.
At QPR FC for the news. First and fastest regarding team news down the south coast. OK, Clint Hill is a player who, as we were saying earlier, hasn't featured as much as he's used to featuring. He's still very much enjoying life at Loftus Road. We caught up with him earlier this week at his home to reflect on his 4 years so far in W12. In part 1, he spoke about the incredible first season, which led to promotion, and the unbelievable second season that led to final day survival. In part 2, he speaks about the bitter disappointment of relegation and the excitement of our playoff victory.
And then, having gone through all that to keep the club's Premier League status, the following season, I think we only need one picture really to sum it up, and that was at the Medeski Stadium. Reading were relegated, QPR were relegated. It must have been very tough for you to take that.
Yeah, I mean, if we're being honest, that probably wasn't the game that we got ready. There was plenty more before that. That was just the nail in the coffin, really. Yeah, it was a bad year, probably one of my worst in football. It's been well documented in the press, and from what people have said, that it just wasn't right in the dressing room and in around the club. There was no camaraderie there or team spirit. And you just felt like you're on your own on the pitch sometimes. So disappointing, but I think hopefully as a club we've learnt from that and we'll never go down that route again.
And always wise to keep your top off.
Yeah, especially with Naden. He's actually looking quite small there. if you get a picture of him now, he's doubled the size.
But one, I suppose, it was a good personal moment for you. Jamie Carragher's final game at Anfield. You were a Scouser, a big Liverpool fan, and you were the captain of the opposition on that day. It must have been a special personal moment. Yeah,
no, I mean, that's definitely one of the highs for me to obviously lead your team out at Anfield, your boyhood club. Never played there before, and to have my dad and my mum there as well. It was just a big thank you for them for supporting me as a kid, and for them to see me walk out there was very emotional for them. But this man here, to be involved on his last game was an honour for me. One of the best defenders I've seen in a red shirt, and someone that I looked up to and tried to study. So massive day for me.
And another personal milestone, I think you said you were embarrassed collecting that one. That was your Player of the Year award in the season we were relegated. It was actually back-to-back Player of the Year awards for you, which is an incredible achievement as well.
Yeah, it is, but it's kind of, I mean, as nice as it is, and you probably look back in a few years and say, that's brilliant. But at the time it was don't think anybody really expected any kind of achievement award because of what happened that season. So very thankful, but yeah, I was very kind of slightly embarrassed at the time about that.
Okay, the following season, last season, it was all about getting back into the Premier League, and this photo, this is you scoring the winner at Leeds United. It sums up the group spirit there as well.
Yeah, it was totally different start. You know, we obviously emptied a lot of players out who didn't want to be here, brought in some really good lads, and we needed them because obviously it's going to be a difficult year in the Championship. And I think we went on one hell of a run at the start, which set us up in a very difficult league. So it was a massive achievement to go up first time as well. And
it seemed to be a season where the players and the fans almost reunited. It's probably best summed up by Tony Mills Day, who's suffering from terminal cancer. He was brought into the dressing room, and it did seem to typify the closeness that again existed between the players and the supporters.
I think I don't know. I think the fans probably thought they got the club back. I don't know. Probably thought that they'd lost a bit of the identity that year that we went down, and didn't feel part of the club in any way. And I think I thought we built a few bridges last year in showing them that we do care, and I mean, and they responded by showing us their support, and I think they got the club back, which is all they want really.
And a photo that probably sums up Clint Hill on the pitch. Relatively quiet off the pitch, but on the pitch you're a different animal, as they say, and that probably typifies what you're like on the pitch, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm very vocal when I'm on the pitch in training every day. It's something, if we go back a few pages, that I've kind of learned off Carragher. You know, he's one of the loudest players you hear. You can hear him on the TV sometimes, you know, when he was playing. And I just think it simplifies your game, and it simplifies the players' games in front of you. If you're constantly communicating, you'll save a few yards running as well. So, yeah, I don't think there's enough of that in the game at the moment. I think there's room for more communication, definitely.
And leading up to ultimately the playoff final, the playoffs, and the second leg at Loftus Road, which will live long in the memory, I think, of all QPR fans and players who were involved. And the incredible picture of you having substituted yourself because we were 1-0 down, and you felt there was an opportunity for Yoon to come on in the second half and get at them down that left-hand side. But you didn't just sit down on the substitutes bench, you seemed to adopt a first-team coach approach.
Yeah, obviously I just thought, with the more attacking player down that side, especially the way the game was going, it could work in our favour, and lucky enough it did. Young came on and done a fantastic job, forward and defensively, and I don't know, just probably got bought into the emotion of the game and the atmosphere. I think I still thought I was playing there, to be honest, by the looks of me. But you know, that's the kind of group we had. Everybody wanted to dig in for each other. I mean, that went down to the subs as well. So every little thing that you can do, hopefully that brings us together a bit more.
And you talk about that togetherness and that incredible huddle. It was 2-1 at that point. It was going into the second half of extra time. That huddle just typified everything about that group, didn't it?
Yeah, I think is that going into the second half of extra time as well.
Yeah, it's 2-1.
So I mean, I can't imagine being a Wigan player looking at that. You know, I'm sure it probably disheartened them a little bit.
And you can even see the Wigan players in the background just waiting for you to kick off.
I mean, they're probably a bit tired and a bit despondent, and you see a group of men like that. Not just the men, you've got staff, you've got everybody in there, geeing each other up, shouting, on your feet, looking like you're ready to go again, like it's the start of the game. And I think that's definitely works in our favour, and it's something we've carried on as a team, that we look to do before games, away from prying eyes. You know, we get together and we say a few words and just show that we're all connected and we're all together.
And you're not involved in this picture. The only one you're not involved in, I don't think you'll have any complaints. What do you think of when you see that? It was just unreal. For the way the game was going, obviously gone down to 10 men. And you're just thinking, if we can just hang on, maybe take them to penalties, get a bit of luck, then you just never know. All the odds were stacked against us that day, I think. I don't think many people wanted QPR to go up in the first place. So for that man to score that goal, and I think a few years ago it was pretty much in a similar position that he'd done for West Ham as well, I think, was just
the emotions when that ball hit the back of the net was just, I don't think you'll ever relive again. And the celebrations were fantastic as well.
I bet they were, and that must have been a special moment. Not too many people go up in front of a packed Wembley Stadium in front of 90,000 and hold aloft the trophy.
Yeah, going back 10 years when I got sent off in a League Cup final, never got the chance to walk up the steps. Yeah, that ate away at me for a long time in my career, and to go back there and win and walk up the steps and rectify all them wrongs it was just brilliant for me, and to obviously share it with Joey as well, who was such a big influence that season. Just typified what kind of character we had. Yeah, I mean, that's what you dream of as a kid when you're a footballer, going to Wembley and winning something. I never thought that had happened, so I've got to thank the boys for that one.
Okay, and finally, the current team photo, squad photo. What does the future hold for QPR?
It's going to be hard. You know, I think the Premier League's improved from the last time we were in there. Obviously, there's more money that's come in, and the teams that you'd think would be in the bottom half have strengthened. They've got some really good players in there. I think the top half and maybe top 4 or 5 are in their own league. I don't think many teams can compete with them. But hopefully, I mean, if we stay positive and stay together, I think we've got as good a chance as anybody else in surviving and staying up. So, yeah, positive. Hopefully injuries won't be too long. We can get our good players back on the pitch and give it a go. We've got to go there and not hold back on any game now. You know what I mean? We've just got to take it to them, and I'm sure the fans would appreciate that as well. So, yeah, fingers crossed we can do it.
News there of defender Clint Hill, who has become an incredible servant for QPR over the past 4 years in W12. And Brian, there's only a couple of minutes left of the show. Looking ahead to Southampton, an interesting stat: we've never lost at St Mary's. It's a good omen, isn't it?
A good omen.
Played 5-1-3, drawn 2.
Let's just hope we don't change a habit then, because we have a tendency to do that.
Come on in positively.
Okay.
Come on, Brian.
Well, we've got to come away with something. Okay.
What are we saying? A point?
Worse a point, but hopefully we come back with 3. I know we always say this week in and week out. We've got to come out with something.
Well, no, but you look back to
it isn't. You say with the stars.
You look back to the year we went down, didn't we? We had a really good result there where Lloyd Rennie and then Jason Park,
Jay Bothroyd.
Jay Bothroyd, didn't he? Yeah. Quite late on, and I think we had to change goalkeepers that day, and we picked up other injuries as well.
That's right.
We've got to be positive. Got to be positive. We can't be talking about
relegation. 3,000 Rangers fans there as well, so they're obviously.
Let's be positive. Come out with something. Get out the relegation zone and try and get ourselves up that table. That's what we've got to do.
Yep, fingers crossed. Just regards to the betting odds, Saints are odds on 9-4 odds on. A draw 16-5. QPR 13-2 to get all 3 points at St Mary's. So certainly the bookies don't fancy QPR as they head down the M3 to take on Southampton this coming Saturday. 3 o'clock kickoff, of course. If you can't get to the game, you can listen to it on QPR Player. Live coverage from 2:55. We'll also be covering it on our social media channels as well. Thanks very much for watching this evening's London Call-In show. Thanks to Ian and to Brian. And we're going to end the show with a memorable moment that took place at St Mary's. Ray Jones scoring a winner.
Rangers were to take all 3 points. Again, thanks to that man Jones, his bravery and his alertness, exploiting a horrible mistake by Kelvin Davis. 2-1 Rangers.